What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to The Right Mindset. Today, we are going to go over the fifth step of writing a script, which is writing your first draft. Yay! We finally made it. Today, I want to explore what you're going to try and get out of your first draft, the purpose of this draft, your first draft, and some guidelines to get your words flowing. So let's do it. Let's develop the right mindset. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on all things craft, some insight to the industry of the publishing world, and of course, interviews with fellow authors about their process and journey as a writer. So let's get to it. Today's lesson is step 5 of writing a script, writing your first draft. Now, we all know, and I know, and you know that you're a writer, and it's time to write. Finally, we're at that point where everything you worked for, we're up to officially, from creating your log line to writing that treatment out and ultimately developing your characters, some plots and outlines. You have earned the right to jump into writing your first draft. Now, keep in mind, these are just my perspectives and my opinions and just another way of looking at the writing process. You can write the first draft before doing anything. It's up to you. This is just the way that I've always done it, as I've learned and spoken with other people, done my research and other avenues in my career. Okay, so you're a writer. It's time to write. Let's get this right off the table. No pun intended. Your first draft is not what you should be sending to agents, companies, producers, or investors. No. Your first draft is the start of the physical process of writing out all the hard work that leads to this point. Get it in your head that this is the fun draft, the one where anything goes, including changing anything from your outline. You're allowed to get all the ideas out onto the page as they come to you. Editing will happen later on in the process and is where you get to hone the story and fill it up and clean it up with your voice, and also all the little things like grammar, cleaning up the format of your script, etc., shrinking down your action blocks, etc. I promise you, no great writer gets it perfect on the first pass. Well, unless you're one of those writers who takes 10 minutes per line while they are trying to get it perfect. I recommend not to do this. I recommend letting it flow through train of thought. And as you get better at this particular part, at letting it flow through your brain, you will improve, and so will your craft and skill of being able to get the words that you want out. And it's all right that you're a baby writer or that you've been doing this for a couple of years. It takes a long time to become proficient in doing something you are passionate about. But Thomas, I've been writing since I was 10 and I'm 30 now. Okay. You're never too old to learn new things. You're never too old to reevaluate your process, and you're never too old to work on what gets you to where you want, because there's always other ways that you can try to improve the skill you have. Part of success is finding the ability to assimilate and be malleable to other ideas. Right? Okay. Since you're a writer and it's time to write, you also want to check in, and this is an important part during your first draft, the check-in. This is why you have an outline, notes of your characters, and a clear vision of your themes and logline. There's no harm in writing a scene using your notes as a guideline. It does not make you less of a writer. It does not make you less awesome or amazing. It's okay to refer back to the notes that you worked so diligently on. When you finish a scene, take a moment to reflect on your notes, themes, and characters. It's okay to take a pause too. Get your brain to kind of go, what is the scene? Am I getting the scene right? Are they in line? Are your scenes in line with what you originally wanted? Or Do you like where they are going now with the change? Either is 1,000% okay. And as being a writer and it's time to write, you want to set deadlines. Deadline doesn't mean you have to kill yourself to get there. You might have a deadline by a studio or even yourself. I recommend, if you don't have a studio giving you a deadline or a producer, you should give yourself a deadline. You might have a deadline by a studio or yourself, in that sense that we don't always have the freedom to write casually. And it's good to start creating that habit now while you're developing your skill to jump into that profession professionally. All right. This doesn't mean to rush through the script. It's a first draft. I promise you, even Pretty Woman was rewritten after it was purchased. And even then, on set, they continued to rework it. You do, however, want to be consistent in writing your first draft. Dedicate X amount of time to it in time blocks each day. I promise you, it will get finished. A little is a lot over time, right? One step a day is 365 steps ahead. A quick aside: set goals, deadlines, and milestones for you to work toward. This will help motivate that need inside you to write consistently each day. Milestones are like, I want to hit 2 pages today, I want to make sure that I make it clear that point one is really emphasized today in the plots. Like plot beat one is really clear. So I'm going to make sure I reread the first act enough to make sure that the ordinary world is expressed enough. Right. And those are milestones. All right. As you check off your plots, Now, what you say is really okay for now. And that's the idea of dialogue. What you say in the script through your dialogue is okay for now. It's all right to write whatever you want. Get that dialogue out of your brain and into the character and out to the page. Write whatever comes out of you and let it flow. Later drafts, you'll take what you wrote and clean it up. For now, give it a splash of E for effort. A helpful point to make during dialogue is tight or useful dialogue tricks. A helpful point to making your dialogue tight and useful is write dialogue that serves the story and drives your narrative forward. You can do this by writing what needs to be said to keep the main plot and subplot fueled. Later on, you can add more character and spice as you need to. This is a technique where in the action, you literally write verbatim without any like color or real voice from you into it. The action is they get into the car, they get out of, they show up to the bank, whatever. And later on, it might be, they show up to the bank will be, four nervous, the driver, a nervous driver stops in front of the bank hitting a curb. So now there's action to it. Now there's drama to it, right? But in the beginning, it might just be they stop in front of the bank, and then you could clean it up and add some story and character later. The same thing with dialogue. If if the purpose of the scene is to let a character know that I don't want to go to the wedding. Thanks for picking me as your best man, but I don't really think the relationship is right for you, and I know she's not right for you because maybe I know she did something that you don't know, but it's not my place to say. So in that scene, I might just write verbatim back and forth. Are you ready for tomorrow? Do you have the ring? And then the character goes, I do have the ring. I am ready for tomorrow, but I don't want to go. Why don't you want to go? Because I don't really believe your relationship is worth it. And I think you can do better. She's the love of my life. Why can't you just support me? You're my best friend. I am your best friend. And this is how I'm supporting you because I can't support something that I feel would hurt you. Now, there's no character. There's no real direction to that. Other than it is the plot being set out. And then later on, you could go through your script and clean that up at a later step to maybe make it more subtextual or maybe even less dialogue and it's more action based, and it's up to you. The point is, sometimes when you're trying to get dialogue out, it's best to kind of just say what needs to be said and not necessarily trying to figure out, what is it? How would this character say it? Because you want to try to get the first draft out to understand it and make sure the story is clear and concise and it makes sense to everything. Elements to focus on for your first draft. Need a sip? Mm. A script has restrictions, yes, unlike a novel where you can write all day until you reach 1,000,000 words. Of course, that's not really true. Generally, certain genres have guidelines of 40,000 to 160,000 words, depending on what you're writing. But the point is, in a dialogue, you can play around with letting stories breathe a little bit. There's some more space for play. And that's why if you ever seen an adapted novel to a show or even a movie, there's stuff taken out because it's limited time. Great example would be Game of Thrones. There's a lot of stuff they had to take out. They had to merge characters together. They had to just skip plot subplots altogether, etc., etc. With scripts, uh, not every film you make is going to be Endgame worthy or allowed. And you want to write a 3-hour script, and you're like, well, Endgame did it. Well, you have to earn Endgame over 10 or 11 years. It's Titanic was earned because James Cameron had done so many movies in a row that were successes, and people were like, it's James Cameron, he knows what he's doing. You can't just be a first time writer and be like, here's an 8-hour script. Even a television series is limited by how many episodes and the length of each episode based on the platform you use, from Netflix to ABC, etc. So, with that said, the reason you're looking at your restrictions to a script is think of how every word, line, and page of a script equals money you will have to spend. The number of characters, the number of scenes, etc. Every scene is a new location, which means time, movement, and setup, and all these other things. That's why it's good to kind of learn a little bit about the industry. Beyond I write scripts, I'll let other people handle the craziness. Does that mean you should limit what your story is? Not necessarily. You should write the story you want, but once you're done with this first draft, these are things you should keep in mind when you're editing the script. Maybe you can condense stuff into another scene. Maybe some scenes are just more for you and less for the story. And these are things that are important to look at. However, while you're writing the first draft, you could think of that like, like how many waiters do you need in a restaurant? Some people do that. They go, "Oh, the host brings you to the table. All right, now a waiter shows up. Okay, now the drink waiter comes over. Now the bar, the character gets up and goes to the bar, and there's a bartender, and they're all like one lines, or can I take your order? So are they really serving the scene? And then that's what I mean. Is like sometimes we add stuff to a scene to kind of make it feel real. And in reality, it's really about shrinking it down and saying, let's just get right to the point, because it's a visual medium, and we don't necessarily, like a novel, we could kind of work to moments. In a screenplay for film and television, you sort of kind of want it to be visually stimulating. Boom, 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 boom. But does that mean like high impact action? No, it just means something has to be happening, and not just because it's happening. It has to be earned, right? And that's what that means. All right. Elements to focus on continued is to get around this. Let the first draft be what needs to be said, seen, and done. So ultimately, what I'm saying is everything about maintaining the structure and the limitations, and saying, hey, I have restrictions. Let your first draft be what needs to be said, seen, and done. Just get it all out. It's okay. It's your first draft. Just put it all there. But a good rule of thumb, which some writers have been known to do this, is they focus solely on the main plot before really adding subplots. Let that play out as your first draft. Then go on later drafts to add subplots and flavor to the story. Unless, of course, the subplots are coming naturally, etc., etc. Literally have your action and dialogue be simple and to the point. Plot might be person A and person B meet each other at a bar, and their relationship causes chaos in their lives until one day they lean into the chaos and find true happiness. So that's the main plot as an example. Again, person A and person B meet each other at a bar, and their relationship causes chaos in their lives until one day they lean into the chaos and find true happiness. So that's the inciting. That's the their ordinary world would be assumed to not have chaos. The inciting incident is that they meet. The conflict is that it creates chaos. The resolution is that they find happiness by leaning into that chaos. So you need to establish them before, during, and after the first meeting. So you know that has to happen. Who is person A, who is person B, they both need a reason to go to the bar. So it's important to get that established. Both person A and B are at the bar. They meet each other. It's awesome. That's the inciting incident. And then the response to that, to having met each other from the perspective of person A and person B, that would be the response to the inciting incident. But then you get to the next part. Then you have to establish the before, during, and after of their relationship causing chaos in their lives. And this happens in Act 2. The beginning of Act 2 is their first date, maybe getting to know one another. And of course, the first sign of chaos. The conflict or midpoint is elevating the chaos to the point where now they are meeting each other's friends. Their friends agree it's bad for each other and they're not right for one another. The result to that, or the direct response to that, is one of them loses their job and a person gets hurt. They decide to end their relationship. Right? So finally, we have to have the resolution. We got to do the third act, and when you establish the before, during, after of them leaning into the chaos and finding true happiness, you might say to yourself, they both realize they are unhappy not being in each other's lives and realize it is not their relationship that is causing the chaos, but the people around them and the dead-end jobs they had. They come together to fight for each other and decide that they are. Oh, this is the second part. So this is the during. So they come together to fight for each other and decide that they are the happiest together, that the signs are saying they need to change the environment around them, not them themselves. And then the result or after would be they end up living in Europe, happily enjoying their life together, and clearly are working a business they love. Let's say they bought a vineyard. This means you have to establish their love of vineyards, wine, and that lifestyle throughout the story. So what does that look like? All right. If we are to look at that, okay, and we just wanted to get the plot beats out, all right, and we go, this is the main plot. I know what it is. I wrote out my 1 to 2 sentences. I can look at that. As long as I'm hitting that, I'm fine. So when I'm writing my script, I know that the first beat of my story needs to be that we have to see who person A is and person B is before they get to the bar. They need a reason to go to the bar, okay? And that could be whatever you want it to be, but ultimately, that's at least 2 scenes, right? Maybe 3. So the first scene maybe be like, this is the world, and we're seeing person A, and then we're seeing person B. And then your third scene, your third and fourth scene might be them leading to the, hey, I'm going to a bar for the weekend. You should come with me. I'm just hanging out with a couple friends, and they're like reluctant. And then they're like, yeah, sure, I'll go. And then person B, maybe we learn that maybe they own the bar, maybe they run the bar, maybe they whatever, and they're already there. So now there you go. We got our, and by the way, now I could take away one of the 4 scenes. I could just make it to 3 scenes. The first scene is the person A living their life, doing their thing. Person B is at the bar, running the bar, handling the bar, dealing with stuff that might seed the fact that they don't really like their job. And then the third scene is back to person A and them being told that, hey, we're going to this bar, after work on Friday night, you should come. And they're like, I really don't want to, but then they choose. So there's your 3 scenes, and they don't have to be very long. And then you get to the inciting incident, which is both person A and person B are at the bar. They meet each other. It's awesome. So they have their meet cute, etc., etc. They like each other, and it's like, ooh, right? And that's your 4th scene. And then your fifth scene is the response to having met each other from the perspective of A. So now we need a fifth and sixth scene. So the fifth scene might be person B, because you want to swap the order of it. Person B dealing with the fact that they met this person. Maybe they're talking to their parents or a friend or friends, right? And they could do it at the bar, so you can continue to showcase that they're going to lose their job at the bar, but they hate their bar job, right? And then person A is talking about like, oh, we got to go back to that bar. I really like that person. So by having your plots, your main plot written out, that's all you just make the scene beats all about the main plot in the beginning. And then you could just go back and add the subplots. For example, in the ordinary world, you could set up that the reason you're going to the bar is because your friend just got engaged, right? And they're like, "Hey, you work with the friend," and the person A is like, "Oh, you got engaged to that girl that I don't really, I don't really think she's right for you, or that guy, I don't really think he's right for you," whatever the case may be. So you're setting up that subplot, and how does that subplot influence you? Well, you're also building and seeding the fact that this friendship might not be the friendship that's needed for both these people, right? And so that's a subplot. But now you can kind of put that in there and be like, wait, now I can make the reason they go to the bar is because of this subplot, which is actually fueling the main plot, even though that it has its own storyline. So that's the value of kind of one to two sentence, even three sentencing out your plot beats and what needs to happen. And then you could kind of just go, that's the plot beat. How do I put that into a scene or scenes? And you'll see it you'll see your movie just coming to life fairly quickly in the sense of just getting your first draft out, jotting out stuff and letting it flow and allowing the main plot to create subplots, especially if you don't have subplots already on the top of your head. But, subplots are also stuff that what they're dealing with. So in this situation, the main plot is that their relationship destroys their life. The subplots are their relationships with their friends, their relationship with the job. Another subplot is that one of them, it turns out one of them really loves a vineyard and they always wanted to buy one, and that's actually one of their first dates that go really well, and they're like explaining like the process of the vineyards. And then the other person's like, what's crazy? My grandfather a long time ago owned a vineyard, and I have such fond memories of being there on the vineyard. So now those are subplots, and they're like building on the main plot. So it's important to set out your plot points like that, and just it's okay to focus on the main plot for your first draft. Anyway, final thoughts. Your first draft is when your ideas first hit the paper, not when you are rewriting or cleaning it up. For the love of writing, stay positive and remember it's writing, an art form, and be creative. You don't have to put pressure on yourself to nail all aspects of the screenplay in the first attempt. It's the first attempt. It's the first attempt. You're creative. You're an artist. You're learning the craft always. Even if you were a painter, you're always learning the craft. Jackson Pollock, he was a painter in a very specific way, and one day he serendipitously discovered a new form of splatter art, right? And it became his thing. In a world of writing, there are no hard or fast rules to how many drafts you'll have to pump out before it's a finished project. If it takes 3 or 12 drafts, it's not about getting it on the first try. It's about getting it to where it should be to tell the story, making sure all your plot points are there and all the relevant information is there. It's rare that you'll feel ready. It's rare that like your first draft will be ready and to present you as a writer and something you would send out. I would highly recommend not sending out a script, a first draft. unless it's the friends and you want to get some feedback and stuff. There's a difference between alpha readers and sending it for representation. To give you an idea, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man took 20 years and plenty of rewrites before it saw the screen, and some would call that a successful movie. It made some money, right? So the other thing is a couple directors even looked at it. But the thing is that script that was first introduced for Spider-Man wasn't made, and it went through all these other processes and processes. The point of it all is not to write a perfect script on your first try. It's about working the script till it's perfect for that story, which means you'll have to know when enough is enough. There's only so many times you can attack a script before you reach the point of being ready and the point of taking it too far. So it's good to set limitations and boundaries and saying, you know what, I hit all my plot beats. The main plot is clear and concise. The subplots don't take away from the main plot, and they're all resolved before the final act or, during the final act. The characters stand out. They're clear, right? These are the things that you should make sure are there. Character development, well, in order, main plot, subplot, character development, and ultimately, is it a clear, concise story? And also, remember, a script in hand is not the same script that's filmed. That's right. The script you finish, that final draft, right, is not going to be the same script that's filmed, which turns out is not going to be the same script that is edited, which is not the same script shown on the screen. Rarely is an amazing film or television show verbatim of what was in the script. After all, it's a visual medium, and it takes a writer, director, cinematographer, and sometimes a second and or third unit to film certain scenes, editors, producers, studios, if you go that route, and a long list of people involved in the process. All this means is that at the end of the day, the script is not going to be what ends up on the screen. Let your script be the heart and soul of your story, not this is the end result of the golden rule. All right? Give yourself the freedom and permission to love the process of writing, filming, and seeing it all on the big screen one day. Now, to conclude that, I just want to say, yes, Quentin Tarantino's probably a director, writer combo that goes, this is what I write, this is what I'm going to film. Wes Anderson's going to be someone who writes his own scripts and films his own scripts. Those are different examples, and those are some examples of people who have made it into the industry, and they started off in different realms. True Romance is a Quentin Tarantino film, but he didn't direct it; he wrote it. All right, there are things like that. Even Kevin Smith, he has his Clerks films and his the Kevin Smith universe, but Kevin Smith has worked on other movies and shows, and where he was just a script writer or he was a consultant or whatever the case may be, and he didn't have full control over it. My point is, especially in the beginning of your career, it's okay to make the script as clear and concise as you can, but it's not okay to look at that script and say, this is the script I'm going to see on screen. It's start training yourself and creating the habits to understand that this is one part of a much bigger process. And that should give you the freedom to breathe a little and go, as long as I have my plot beats, as long as it makes sense, as long as the characters are clear on the page, the script can now be moved around. All right. I don't have to spend 30 years on it. Making sure every single word is perfect, because even actors, if you read the Shawshank Redemption script and you watch the movie, it's not the same script. A lot of the same emotional beats are there, but even some scenes are cut shorter. Some scenes are not even there. Dialogue is altered in some cases drastically. So, hey, next video on this series will be, wow, we're already to part 6 of the writing script series. Interesting. That's awesome. All right. In the 6th part of this series, I'm going to tell you what to do next after you finish your first draft of your script. And maybe you'll be surprised to hear what it is. I know I'm going to be surprised. Wait, no, actually, I know what it is. Question: how many scripts do you think were written before your favorite film reached the silver screen? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you want to learn a little bit more about improving your craft, some insight to the industry, and hearing from fellow authors about their journeys, both in writing, understanding the craft, and the business, hit that bell icon and subscribe so you don't miss out. Woo! All right, that was a nice full episode. There we go. I had fun. I hope you had fun. Anyway, as always, keep developing the right mindset. See you next time. Bye.